got up and we all started having a basically thinking about the China or what China is doing. Because as we all know, that the China is a very secretive society, and because of their government policies and communism, we don't get as much information as what we get it in our country. So always there is a continuously talk about going on when it comes to the uh, China, what business they are doing, what is their policies, and so on and so forth. But this particular subject I was connected with for a long period of time, what China is doing in the world when it comes to business and entering into the different business. Uh, so now as the corona has affected everybody in the world, everybody's attention is towards the China. And as we all know that the different theory is going on with respect to whether the China did the coronavirus intentionally or not. Uh, we don't know. Probably we will never come to know the truth about it. But the certain things remains correct or true about the China is trying to take over the world's business. And for two or three reasons are there for doing that. Number one reason is that they want to become number one in a world economy. Number two, by year 2050, they have made a resolution, 2050, that by hook or crook, they have to become a number one economy in the world to celebrate the 100 years of the Chinese dictatorships or Chinese government present party. So that's this number two. What is they have an agenda, and when even though they have become number two, the difference between America number one and the China become number two is very large, and that's why they are using probably every technique in the books available to become get into the race of that how they can become a number one economy in the world. Looking to all these things, I mean, we have to see that like 45 years back, China was a kind of an economy or a country where there was nothing. It was a communist country with the high populations, high unemployment, very poor. And in that 45 years, now they have become the number two economy in the world. If we look at some of the figures, what we have, it will give us like a really shocking numbers that the GDP is almost 13.61 lakh crores. GDP growth rate is 6.6% or an annual change. GDP per capita is 9,770 US dollars. Gross national income GNI is about 25.3 lakhs. GNI per capita is almost $18,170 per person. Internet users is almost 55% of the people in China are using the internet. This is the data of 2070. Probably now it has gone to 60-65%. Also, if we look at the import and export, China is the only country in the world where they have such a large surplus. What do I mean by that? That they are importing less and exporting more, and which we all know. And they have entered into everybody's life, country, business, whatever we do. Certain things we cannot do without Chinese product. Even this laptop, means even what I tried, it's a Lenovo, but it's a Chinese made. And that's how they have entered into the world in almost in every country and in every place in the world. So with this import-export data, if you look at it, this next graph, it will show that from 95 to 2019, their export, which is in a blue line, has increased by large, very high number, whereas in a red line is their import. So there is obviously a trade balance is in a positive, almost $800+ billion. Now, how the China has reached to this situation in the last 45 years, because a lot of countries in the world is trying to do the similar things, but they are not. So certain things were in favor of China when they opened the doors. It comes to an economic liberalization. So first of all, when they opened the doors somewhere around 75, the labor supply was abundant or enough. Wages and unemployment was very high. So with the very small wages, people were ready to work. Female participation in the workforce means they had a one-child policy, so female can go back into the workforce immediately. Political system was a communism, so you don't have to go through the process of lower house and upper house and opposition parties, what we have it in a political, in a democracy. Strong leaderships, even though they were like a communist, but this leadership were very strong and determined to do, running a country like an organizations or a company rather than a government. And even though they were communism and a communist party, they opened the doors as a free market economy. And they believe that with this, all the above factors, China can become an export-led growth. That means they will manufacture the goods because of the low wages and unemployment and high labor supply and so on and so forth. And then they will export it all over the world. And that's how they invited the companies in the last 45 years from all over the world. And as we all know now, China has become the basically manufacturing backyard of every country in the world, whether you are in America, European countries, or African countries, Latin American companies. When it comes to manufacturing some things, directly or indirectly, you are dependent on China. Not only that, but also they come up with that concept of private enterprise, because in communism, generally you do not have the private enterprise, everything belongs to the government. But here in this case, they allowed the private enterprise. At the same time, the government had come up with these big plants where they have enough electricity or energy supply. Investment into infrastructures, they invested heavily into infrastructures. Economic diversification, that when it reached to a stage in China, they didn't remain only into the manufacturing, but they've gone into the research and development, they've gone into the diversified of the means manufacturing, that it's not only the low-end goods which they are manufacturing, but high-end products, pharmaceutical product, engineering products, aircraft machineries, they're all manufacturing in China. Obviously, they need an educated people, so they had an education institutes were established to educate the people in China so they can do the jobs in all these factories which are being set up in China. The location wise, China had an advantage that next to the China on the eastern part, they have three major countries, which is Japan, Taiwan, and Korea. And because of these advantages earlier, which we mentioned, all these three countries established many of their companies, their location into China, Japan, Taiwan, and Korea. Because of the large area of China, the China had an abundant amount of the lot of raw material and natural resources. But also population growth is also in their favor, that whatever the amount or number of people they needed to bring the workforce into the work, they are in a position to do it. Also at the same time, they've taken over the technology, either a legal way or illegal way. They have taken over the technologies from different parts in the world and started manufacturing goods in China. And that is one of the things which they have done it over the period of time. So these are the different elements in general which you can see that the China has done to expand their economy. But one of the important aspects which they have done it is the going global, outbound investment. And that's China started doing it in 2005, because from 1975 till 2005, it was always the investment was making within the China, overseas companies were coming, establishing the manufacturing units. The goods were manufactured, were consumed within the China, but also it was exported out of China as well to meet the need of the world in every country. But when they reach to a certain level of their economy, they realize it that if we want to go ahead in economy, if we want to make a stronger economy, just by doing a manufacturing and inviting the foreign companies in our country is not going to help. We have to go out of China and start making an investment strategically in different parts of the world. And that's where the most of the people are not aware of it, but the China is doing it since last 15 years. Because of this corona, now suddenly we all have woken up that what China is doing, how they are investing, what they are doing it, and everybody started realizing it. But they have started in 2005. The next slides will show you the kind of investment they have made it. From 2005, when they started making investment outside, to 2019, the China made an investment of almost $2 trillion as of today. $2 trillion, which is a two-thirds of our Indian economy. That's a huge investment they have made it, and they have made it very, very strategically in a very systematic manner, as if they are ready to take over the whole world. That whole world belongs to them. Just give you the first slides. In the developed country, they made an investment into the stocks, companies, and in various areas, like in United States, their investment is into $183 billion. In Canada, it's a 56 billions. In Britain, it's 83. Germany is 47 billion. In Switzerland, it's a 61, and so forth. Is a huge investment being made by China in these countries. Not only that, but when they realize it, that these are the developed countries or countries, those who are ahead of it. But they saw that where we can make an investment in other parts where the countries are not developed. So the China looked at it, the another areas, the African countries, Middle Eastern countries, the South Asian countries, where they thought that with their capability now, that they are very strong in constructions, manufacturing, and what they can do in these countries. Based on that one, like a country like Algeria, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, in all these countries which you see on the front of you, they made a heavy investment. And because of this heavy investment, you can imagine country like in Algeria or Nigeria making a $32 billion investment in their infrastructure, roads, manufacturing facilities, technically know-how. These small countries with a very small economy, they just become, you can say, almost like a slave to the Chinese government and Chinese system. So as of now, you can see the picture shows something like this, that across the world, there is not a single country or continent in the world where China doesn't have that heavy investment. These investments are coming from the Chinese multinational companies, which are backed by the government, Chinese banks, People Banks of China, and other banks are making this investment. They have a very deep pockets, and they say that whatever is available for sale in every country in the world, we are ready to purchase, which no other country in the world has a capacity to do this one, because the private enterprise is heavily backed by the government, and the government is also going out of China and making an investment into the different parts of the world. This was the scenario of a B2B and making a heavy investment. But at the same time, in the last 15 years, the China has shown obviously their economy is booming, their manufacturing capacity is booming, more and more factories are being set up in China. So what has happened to the local people? When it comes to the local people, they're also let me just, okay. When it comes to the local people, they have become very rich as well. The China only allows the remittance of only 50,000 out of the country. But with this booming economy and investment all over the world, their population growth, I mean the NRI, HNIs, high net worth individual growth has increased tremendously, that in the last 10 years, from 2006 to 2016, the millionaires or the high net worth individuals were in China's were only 180,000 to it reached to 1.6 million. So the number of HNIs has increased, the wealthy people has increased, which is the highest growth rate in China. Now, when these people had these properties and money, they realized that with the Chinese passport, they can go to a very limited countries. So if the Chinese banks, Chinese multinational companies are going out and making an investment, why we cannot go out? Why we cannot become a global citizen, make an investment and do the business? So the Chinese, if you look at this data on the HNIs, obviously the United States has a very large number of China data, but China is still number 2 when it comes to the high net worth individuals. So many people ask questions that when they are so wealthy, when they are so well-to-do Chinese citizens, why they wish to leave China? Because that's the idea comes on our mind, that generally when we are dealing with, when I deal with the Indian clients, when they are very well-to-do and come and meet me, they'll say, Prashant bhai, we are very well-to-do and we do not need to go out of India, but we are doing it for our children. But for Chinese people, when we were dealing with them, when I was in Canada and dealing with the Chinese, we saw the variety of reasons which were coming out that they were giving us. First, even though they are very well-to-do and they are having a very successful business, most of the people are tired of the communist government because it doesn't give them enough freedom. Also, they have a fear that there is no certainty of life and a property, no real estate market, poor quality of life in many areas of China. In the big cities, the video which we see, we always see that very, very high end of the infrastructures and everything is created. Also, when you live in China, the children's educations like ours is also very important to them, that they want their children to study in America, Canada, in European countries, Australia or New Zealand. But also there is a corruption in China. So many businessmen, many politicians wants to run or go away from China, and basically they are escaping from the law. But the most important aspect they saw that when the Chinese HNIs and ultra HNIs people saw that this high net worth individuals saw that the big companies can go out of China and make an investment as a SMEs, why we cannot go out of China and do the business? So in order to expand their business, they thought of going out of China. And initially the destinations for them were countries like Hong Kong, Canada, Australia, and USA, because these were the countries which were giving them the residencies and citizenship by investment. I think there is a request to repeat the slide number 14. So I'll go over that one again. The slide number 14 is about how the world HNI data. That means the high net worth individuals, how many of them are there in the world. In United States, it's almost like a 50,000. Having an amount of the 50 millions and above is the number given. Is this many in United States, whereas in China, it's number 2. So this is the comparisons of the high net worth individuals in different countries. The third one is Germany, then United Kingdom, Japan, and India is at the number 6. But obviously United States is way ahead of this. So going back to the slide number 15, they were making an investment into this country. But when Chinese people were making an investment into these countries, they realized that in order to expand the business, we need a visa or a permanent residency to go there and do our business or expand our business. And in doing that, they saw that over the period of time, these are the countries like a residency and citizenship is given by the countries like a Canada, Australia, USA, UK, New Zealand. Then the direct citizenship is given by these countries. And over the period of time, they started making an investment into these countries. And the Chinese wealthy businessmen started establishing them business in these countries. As this is a part of our business or my business, a profession or a practice, we saw that when it comes to the residency and citizenship by investment in this country, the China takes over the 80% of the quota allocated by this country, 80% of the world quota. And why they are in a position to do this one? Because they have realized that they have money. But when it comes to doing the business in their country, in Europe, in America, they need a visa, they need a green card or a permanent residencies or an immigration, which they don't have it. And the only way they can do this one by doing a business in that country is by making an initial investment either into real estate or into a business or into a government bond or government approved real estate projects. Then only they are in a position to obtain the residencies. And that gives him a full power to do business as a local businessman or a local citizens. Let me just give you in the next slides an example of Chinese exporters versus Indian exporters. Say, for example, we have a Chinese exporters who is exporting white shirt. And we have an Indian exporters who is also exporting a white shirt from Mumbai. Now, this Chinese exporter has made an investment of half a million euro in Portugal and become a resident of Portugal in less than 6 to 8 months time. So now he has an access to 28 countries in the world of the Europe to supply his white shirts all over the Europe. Whereas Indian exporter is in Mumbai or Delhi or somewhere, is trying to export his white shirt sitting in India, expecting the orders to come from European countries so he can export it. So the importer in Europe needs to open up a letter of credits, probably give a purchase orders and go through the whole import-export process. Whereas the Chinese exporters, when they realize it that many small and medium-sized importers in the respective countries are not in a position to come to China, they started using this residency and citizenship method of obtaining the residency of that country and go to that country, establish their companies, establish themselves, their families, their children, they can do it. Not only that, they got the additional benefits that now their children can go to a school free of charge in Europe. But not only that, when the children goes to the universities, it can reduce their education fees by 60 to 80%. It gives them a visa-free movement almost into 130, 40 countries, 150 countries in the world. So they become a global citizen in that respect, and it gives them a more movement to do a more business across the world. So this is what the Chinese exporters are doing all over the world. And they are not closing their factory in China. It's open and it's running on. But they have created the distribution channel by having their presence into a different continents and in different countries around the world. And this is how they have the B2C or these exporters has expanded the business. So in the first slides, we saw how the multinational companies and Chinese banks and government-backed banks, the companies has gone out and made an investment all over the world. And this is how the exporter has gone out all over the world and did a business. Not only this, but as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, that how China wants to take over the business. We all heard about the cryptocurrencies. This is the article published on 17th of December 2019 in Forbes magazine, that the Chinese government wished to come up with their own electronic currency, which will allow them to have their official currency, which the government is taking steps, and it will force us all of us in all over the world that if we want to purchase the Chinese goods, they will start quoting the price in their electronic currencies and we will be required to purchase that. Idea for them is to bring the dominations of the American dollars down and make the Chinese currency up. So this is the one big strategies that they are using it. Whereas all of the world, we have abandoned or rather we have boycotted the electronic currency, whereas the Chinese government has adopted it and they are working on it, that how they can come up with their electronic currency. Number two, moving to Africa and Latin America, you saw in the earlier slide that the multinational companies and the government-backed companies are making an investment into infrastructures into Latin America and in African countries. Not only that, because China is a very large country, they have still a problem with the unemployment. They bring their people from China to these African countries, 1 lakh, 2 lakh thousand, or 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, and manage and run a business in those countries or getting employment in those countries as well. So this is another way that they are trying to reduce the unemployment of their country, because taking them out of the China and planting them in the different countries in the world where the Chinese companies are going. This is the another one article which was in a front page when I was doing my research, how Chinese ended up in Italy. And we heard the coronavirus, which was only we heard initially was in Italy. But how the Chinese people ended up in Italy. So here is the story which is given in this article by one of the leading author of Italy. He's an American, but now based in Italy. His name is Giacomo Nicolazzo, and he has written this article that, you know, right now in Italy, it's a democracy, but there is a communist party is there and there is a democratic party is there. When this communist party's leader came into the power, the Chinese communist party's leaders and politicians came to Italy, made collusions with them in such a way that we wish to make a big investment in Italy. And they made a collusions in such a way that it created a kind of a panic in China, in Italy, and the stock market price of Italy came down very low. When it came down low, the Chinese government and the Chinese-backed multinational companies made an investment into this companies and taken over all the big brands of Italy, like the cars, clothes, garments, and everything. And also they brought so many people from China to Italy that right now in Italy, 3.4% population is Chinese. And that was one of the reason when this Chinese came back to Italy from after the Christmas holiday. In beginning of the January, there was a sudden rise in COVID virus in Italy. And because of that, now they are all facing the difficulties. So this is what the Chinese government has done when it comes to taking over the business in a country. So they can go up to this kind of a length when it comes to taking over the business, everything. This is another masterpiece which they have used it. The government has made a policy that any company or organization of China and any individual will work or support and cooperate in national intelligence work. What is in a simple language? It means that if the Chinese government asks for any business in China or any citizen cannot say no to it to become a spy of the Chinese government. And that's why many of you must have heard about last year, Huawei was the big company who wanted to enter into America with the 5G network, and the President Trump refused to give them a permission to come into America. The main reason was this regulation, that they realized that if this company is going to come into China, from China to USA, with that intelligent the network of the internet, and the telephones and telecommunications, basically they will be spying in China, in America on behalf of the Chinese government. Subsequently, Australia, Germany, UK, most of the countries also realized the real motive behind this company to come and make a heavy investment into that country, because to go after the telecommunication systems, grab the data, find out what exactly is happening in this country, and try to take over the business and enter into this one, that they become a domination in this country. The one of the last one in the series is this book, which is 100 years marathon, written by the Michael Pillsbury. He is a renowned author and he is an authority on the Chinese affairs. And he has written this book where he talks about the Pillsbury. Please shut off your mute. Put it on a mute, please.
I'm a original investor. मैं जैसे 1560 के आसपास गया ना, तो मैं थोड़ा थोड़ा निकालने लगा.
Please, PVG, please put it on a mute. So this Pillsbury book was endorsed by the Wall Street Journal, and which says that is correct to assets that the China's constituted by far the biggest national challenge to American positions in the world today. This book describes in details that how step by step the China has taken a step to enter into America, and not into America, but every country in the world. They have a plan for every country. Every country, they have a strategy that how do we enter into this country. Not only that how do we enter into this country, but also how do we stop foreign companies to come into this country? Because in earlier days, the spying was done by sending a people physically from one country to the another country. In today's world of the internet and telecommunications, and as we are all connected with this one, you know that the data on the social media is the powerful tool to know about the pattern of the people, what is happening, spying, eating habits, and all kinds of things. So in order to stop the foreign companies and foreign electronic companies and social medias to come into China, as and when this one kind of a companies or a platform came in, the China created their own. Here is the next slides, will give you an idea. In the digital world, we use all browser, whole world is used the Google or Chrome. China has their UC browsers. We use the search engine Google, China use Baidu. Our chat messengers, WhatsApp is very well known. The WhatsApp doesn't work in China, it's a WeChat. Online shoppings, we do the Amazon. China use Alibaba because it's available in local language. Language is also a barrier for them, but it's Alibaba. As I mentioned about the Alibaba, you know that last year the Alibaba's founder and chairman Jack Ma retired, and the news were there all over the world. But and we all thought that okay, now he wants to retire and become a philanthropist and spend his time with the family. But one of the reasons was that his popularity because of the companies, and it went IPO, he realized that his security is in danger, and that's why the Alibaba's chairman decided that it's better I resign and step down. My popularity will come down, and I will not be in the eye of the Communist Party. For the email, we use Gmail, they use QQ.com. In social media, they are using Facebook, they use Renrer, Twitter, which is Weibo. We have a YouTube, they use Youku. So all the social medias which we use it, China doesn't allow you to enter into their market. They have their own versions and they have created it just to keep the data and everything within the country, so foreign companies cannot come in. Mobile, there's Vivo and Apple, we are using it. In China, no foreign companies are allowed to sell or do it, or if it is done, it's only Chinese manufactured one which you can sell it. When it comes to India, let's look at what they have done it in India in the last 5 years. Right now, the trade between China and India is that India to China, we are exporting something like $18 billion worth of good, whereas we are importing almost like $72 billion. Almost now it's up to almost 100 billions. In order, they realize it that in India, the Chinese market, the digital market and laptop market is increasing. China bought over the IBM ThinkPad, changed their name to Lenovo, and then they enter into an Indian market. Nobody realized that it's a Chinese product or so and so, and now they have a 25% of the market share in India. The another big market they've killed in India is a Shivakashi. We all know that it was famous for the firecrackers. Now they bring their own firecrackers, and half of the companies, or more than half of the companies, are out of the business. As we have all probably studied in our school days, that Malaysia and Indonesia was the #1 country when it comes to the rubber production. India was like a #2 or 3. And we had a big rubber market in south of India. That again, China has brought their goods and dumped their goods in India in such a large quantity that those markets and those rubber markets and farming has gone out of the business. All kinds of mobile phones are introduced in India. Not only that, startup investment is also being made into companies like Flipkart, Make My Trip, Snapdeal, Paytm, Big Basket, Byju's, Zomato, Swiggy. These are all our brands created, but unfortunately, our businessmen, our governments, our millionaires, billionaires didn't make an investment, venture investment into these startup companies, and that China has taken an interest into that. As we all know, in the latest news, People's Bank of China has made an almost 1% investment in HDFC Bank. And as soon as the government came to know, they had to immediately come up with the circular that any countries who are border with India will not be allowed to make an investment unless they taken a permission from the central government. Because the Indian government now started realizing that the Chinese government intention is not to make an investment, but basically rather break the local economy of the country wherever they go and keep dumping the Chinese good into that country. So from 2004, China started with $1.4 billion investment. It was in 2017, it was 8. And by 2020, in 2 years, now the investment of China into India is almost $26 billion. And if we do not stop this one, or we do not come with the strategies, most of our business is of not that size that we can survive, and China will take over that business and we will be just working for them as a worker. That's all. I have taken in enough of your time. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions or answers, I'll be more than happy to do it. One of the last line I would like to say, that Prime Minister Modi जैसे बोला था कि घर में घुस के मारेंगे at the time of these Uri's attack. Similarly, now we have to come up and say कि जैसे Chinese लोग कर रहे हैं उसी तरह हम उसके देश में प्रवेश करके व्यापार करेंगे. यहाँ से बैठे बैठे बिजनेस नहीं करेंगे. अगर यहाँ पे इंडिया में बैठे बैठे बिजनेस करेंगे तो I don't think that we will become a stronger economy. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your time.
Prashant sir, most of the people want to have a copy of the PPT. So if you can give the slide share to them.
The slide shares, I can do that. PPT, I can certainly share. And also I have recorded it, this one. So it will go on our YouTube channel. And also it will be available on SlideShare as well. Right now, let me see if I can go on a chat and basically share this one with everybody. So you can look at it. The www.ajmeralaw.com/live is our page. From that page, you can have a copy of social medias and everything. and you can have a copy of the presentations and you can download it. As soon as this meeting is finished, within 45 minutes or 1 hour, I should be in a position to upload the whole presentation on YouTube as well. And you can go to the YouTube channel, and there also you can have a look at this whole presentation again, or if you want to share with any of your friends or relatives or colleagues, please do so. You're more than welcome to do it. Anybody has any questions or anything want to ask or want to have a understanding or wish to give a comments? Yes, Giriraj Bhai.
Good evening, Prashant Bhai. It was very nice interaction. Now, many of the manufacturing companies, they are moving out of China.
Yes.
Now, people say we will make in India, because I have been attending your speech also and also listening to Dr. Subramanian Swamy. Now, because we have limitations as far as the infrastructure is concerned. So, where do we stand and how much time it will take for India to come to this level so that companies will start coming to India?
See, we have to act. We have learned the lesson from COVID. Like, give you one example of COVID. Before this coronavirus, we didn't have the sanitizers. We didn't have the gloves. We didn't have this the suit for the doctors and for the nurses and all the workers, right?
Yeah.
The China refused to give it to us, and when they give it to us, it becomes a necessity. We come under the pressures, or kind of basically, we all came together from all over India, and within a short period of time, we were in a position to manufacture now. You know, like I think Minister Gadkari came on a television and mentioned that in the textile cluster of Nagpur, they are now in a position to manufacture something like 1 lakh or 2 lakhs those dresses and supplying all over India. So if that's the kind of a mentality and spirit we keep when this foreign company comes up and interested in doing the business, we will be in a position to do it. But still, remember, our infrastructure is not good. As of now, our Commerce Ministry has sent a circular to all the consulate office around the world, asking these specific companies who are in China and if they are interested in coming to India. And not only that, they've been given a questionnaires that what you want from India, because you are now in China, you have other options like going to Taiwan or probably Korea or Vietnam, and in India, 4, 5, 7 countries are there in front of them. So what do you want that you want to us to change in India that you will be more than willing to come here than this one? So one of the main reason was given was our labor law, because labor laws are very, very stringent here in India compared to the other countries. And this is how they are giving the comments, and based on that one, the government needs to act and change it. Probably when it comes to the infrastructures, as we know that the government is trying to build the roads in India since last 30 years, since liberalizations. Earlier government was doing it. Our government, present government, is also trying to do it. But because of our land rights, we are not in a position to build so many roads, because you go 1 kilometer and build a road, and then you have probably 10 other case filed by the local farmers, which doesn't happen in country like China. And they can just take a bulldozer and say, here is the road, this is not your land. So yes, it does make a difference and difficult, but we have to be ready and work with that kind of an emergency. Otherwise, this is a golden opportunity, we will lose it. That if so many companies are coming to India, and if we cannot deliver them what they want, and then this is what is going to happen. And also, we should not be only thinking of like China only made in India, but the approach which China has taken, that going out of the country as well, because that will increase the bilateral trade with the other country as well. Not only that, these companies who are coming from abroad, manufacturing in China, in India, and we are exporting that goods, that is always there. But also the way in which China has taken an approach that for the other goods which we are manufacturing, which we are good at it, how can we distribute in other countries? And that can be done only by having the Chinese approach that our exporters goes out to those countries and establish that their presence in the different countries. Then only it is going to create the bilateral trade. The China's growth, tremendous growth has come in the last 15 years when they started going global. So still we have in our mind, I think, mentality that if you are very wealthy or well-to-do, and if you try to go out of the country, and if you try to take an immigration, and these questions I face on a daily basis, people started suspecting or talking about that, are you running away from the law? You know, that's the mentality we have. We have to come out with this one. Chinese millionaires are multi times more wealthier than us, but they do it as the best of the both world. If you take a farmhouse out of Ahmedabad, does it mean that your wife is kicking you out and that's why you have a farmhouse? It's the second options you are having it. Similarly, when it comes to the global business, you have to look at it that our passport doesn't allow you to do business all over the world. How can we do this business? And the only way we can do a business, particularly to the SME, small and medium-sized enterprise, is by Chinese approach.
Thank you.
Yes, anybody else? Any comments? Most welcome. I'm just looking at some of the comments of Ajmera Law. So many companies are moving out from China. Great information. How can you explore the business in the world or have a citizenship? Good support. Thank you so much. Enjoy the PPT next process. Thank you, Prashant. It's very informative. Thank you very much, guys. If you don't have any comments or any questions, then I think I'll close the sessions. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. And by within an hour or hour and a half.
Prashant sir, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Looking at this, major disaster which we have seen now, I mean, like the US has been getting very strict to WHO and China. So what should be the India's strategy? Can they plan a nuclear attack on China or anything else against China? What will be their policy against China? Or will they play only safely and wait for the other countries to take any actions against China?
See, now what is going to happen is that, remember that WHOs or all these world organization has come up only after the Second World War, right? And that the World Health Organization has become a big organization in the world, taking into consideration, but it doesn't have the implementation power. And one of the theory which is coming out is that basically the present chairman of the WHO was supported by the China, and that's why he is making all the statements and all these things in favor of China. But which America is not ready to believe. Most of the countries are also not ready to believe. So there are two theories or two discussions are going on, that what do we do with the WHOs and all the international organization? Or the second thing is that do we establish a separate kind of a system or a new system whereby it is going to be China against the world? And probably it is going to happen that the China against the world. If it can reach to a situation where it can basically become a war against the China as well. Definitely in coming months, as soon as all these countries come out of the coronavirus, they're going to take a very strict action against the China. Every articles in international magazine, and you see that the people are not ready to accept any of the Chinese goods. Not only that, we all forget, every economy in the world forget the one aspect which we have learned since we started reading, which is not to put all your eggs in one basket. Whereas on this coronavirus, again, they have taught them a lesson that every economy in the world started depending on China. When it comes to basically as soon as like a tissue paper to making a aircraft machinery. And they are all thinking that probably we need to have another distribution channels or a manufacturing unit and manufacturing facilities or supply chain management, not entirely depending on China. That is the second thoughts going on right now when it comes to against the China. Also remember that all these big companies who wants to leave China, the Chinese governments and Chinese companies, their policies are so strict. Do you think that China will allow this company to live peacefully? I don't think so. The China will say that, yeah, if you want to live and if you like your life, leave it as it is and go into the next plane back to your home country. Do not come and look at this factory. Now this factory belongs to the government of China. And that's what they are going to do it. They have done it with number of people. I know the businessman who has gone from Canada and America. When they realize it that they are not following the rules, or they realize that this company has now become very successful, the Chinese government has taken over this business. As of now, if your company reaches to a certain size, then on your board of directors in China, you will have the Chinese government director as well. They will not speak anything, but they will discuss, record everything, and present it to the government officials, to their headquarters on each and every company.
Okay, great, Mr. Prashant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Manish bhai, you want to say something?
Thank you so much for your presentation. Just I want to ask you, which country you are recommend, as we can see the point of good based education, fair politic, based country, secure country, and easy to move down to there.
See, generally, when you want to move with the family, then people look at it the English-speaking country, which is starting with America, Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand, because we all speak English language. So it becomes easier for us to settle in that country. So these are the 5 countries, as we all, it's not a big secret or an opinion, but it's everybody we know that these are the countries we want to go and settle. Then the second aspect or second one comes is the European countries we want to do it. Also, it depends on Manish bhai, whether you want to move with the whole family and settle there in a new country, or you are just doing it for your children. Are you in a position to close down your business and start up a new or expand the business in that country? Are you just doing it because you want a visa-free travel, or you want to have a retired life in another countries? So it's also, we have to look into it, that what objective you have it. But yes, obviously that if you are thinking that you want to immigrate from India with your wife and children for a better quality of life and education, then obviously this 5-6 English speaking countries does make a first choice for the Indian businessmen and HNIs and ultra HNIs. But the list is increasing, and depending on your personal need, you have to look at the different countries.
Thank you so much. And then I have just another one question, is small, like right now Indian government, they announced they suspended all visa and OCI. So what about just I want to get the information from you. So what about the OCI card? Who is the holding OCI and they're living in India?
Just personally me. Right now, I'm a Canadian citizen, so I can go back to Canada. But if I leave Canada, I may not be in a position, leave India, then I may not be in a position to come back. Actually, I have a very typical situation. My daughter is getting married in Canada right now, which was decided, and we were supposed to go. Now we are not in a position to go, and they are going to do court marriage.
Okay.
Because once I leave the country, I will not be in a position to come till that orders changes.
Right. Okay.
Sir, there was a question for you from Rajendra ji on the chat.
Sir, questions: after this pandemic, will USA change its industrial policy to accommodate the new industrial development New industrial development in what sense, Rajendra bhai?
પ્રશાંતભાઈ, હું એવું પૂછવા માંગુ છું કે જો ચાઇનામાંથી બધા એક્ઝિટ કરવા માંગે છે
હા.
તો શું યુએસ ની અંદર એ ચાન્સીસ વધે અને ગવર્મેન્ટ શું એની સાથે એ વસ્તુ એ લોકો ચેન્જ લાવશે? પોલ્યુશન રિલેટેડ એ લોકોને ત્યાં બહુ ઇશ્યુઝ છે, એટલે ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રીયલ ડેવલપમેન્ટ થતું નથી, ઘણી બધી પ્રોડક્ટનું ત્યાં પ્રોડક્શન થતું નથી, તો શું એમાં ચેન્જીસ આવશે ત્યાં આગળ?
Yes, it will come because they started realizing કે જે અમુક critical વસ્તુઓ જે હોય, it would be
તમે
fair.
ઇંગ્લિશમાં કહી શકો છો, તમે ઇંગ્લિશમાં કહી શકો છો.
Yeah. So it like if it yes, they are considering right now, even in Canada and in Europe, that these critical things, which is life supporting things and so forth, has to be manufactured in their own country. Like Canada is thinking in that directions, America is thinking in that directions, particularly when it comes to these medical supplies and all these ones. You know, they didn't have the enough gloves, they didn't have the enough the mask, which is like could be available in Canada or in America, but now they are asking this automotive companies to manufacture those ones. You must have read it in the newspaper. So yes, when it comes to these medical things, they are always very, very sensitive, and the changes will come that these are items we should be not dependent on the world, but we should be self-sufficient.
અમેરિકા એકચ્યુઅલી એ લોકોની ડિફેન્સ રિલેટેડ પણ ઘણા બધા પ્રોડક્ટ્સ ને લઈને ચાઇના પર ડિપેન્ડન્ટ છે. મેડિકલમાં તો છે જ, ડિફેન્સમાં પણ છે.
Yes, yeah, they are because they realize it that it's very, very expensive to manufacture here, but they will do it, and they are trying to do it that rather than creating an unemployment and which is going to happen in all the countries in the world. We have to bring this company back, probably come up with the policies, do it in a remote areas, probably take under the government manufacturing, which as of now, America doesn't have any company which belongs to the government, but probably they'll say that we will take these manufacturing facilities within the government purview and support the system, because obviously they don't want to see this system, these things happening again to them. And all the countries, Western countries, are thinking that we dependent too much on China.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your time. I'm ending this meetings. Hemant bhai, you have joined time and again. Any questions? Hemant Thingurani. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Hemant bhai. Thank you, Yogesh bhai. Yeah.
Hemant wants to sign tomorrow. એને વચ્ચે મેસેજ નાખ્યો મને